It's just absurd. The frustration in the room is palpable, echoing the concerns of city leaders across Minnesota who feel their voices are not being heard. Cross Lake Mayor Jackson Purfield's frustration is shared by local leaders across Minnesota this holiday season. As snow blankets the state and communities prepare for the holidays, mayors are grappling with a harsh reality. Their cities are being pushed to the brink by decisions made far from home. Mayors are publicly questioning the state's fiscal management, arguing that reckless spending and alleged fraud in St. Paul are forcing cities into tough choices, raising taxes, cutting services, and delaying projects. These are not decisions taken lightly. They affect real people. From families relying on public services to small businesses hoping for infrastructure improvements. They say the state squandered a historic surplus, leaving communities to deal with the fallout. Projects that once promised growth and opportunity now sit idle, and local leaders are left to explain to their residents why progress has stalled. For these mayors, the state's budget isn't just numbers, it's a force that directly impacts their ability to govern. Every line item, every cut, and every missed opportunity ripples through their communities, affecting everything from public safety to road repairs. As Christmas Eve 2025 arrives, local leaders are sounding the alarm. The current path is unsustainable, and the relationship between state and local government is at a breaking point. The festive lights outside city halls contrast sharply with the anxiety inside, as officials work late into the night searching for solutions. Mayor Purfield's blunt words are a desperate plea for change. He and his fellow mayors are calling on state leaders to listen, to act, and to remember that behind every budget decision are real communities struggling to keep their doors open and their futures bright. On December 22, 2025, a long-simmering frustration among Minnesota's local officials finally boiled over into public view. For months, city leaders across the state had quietly voiced concerns behind closed doors, but on this day, their grievances erupted into the open, setting off a chain reaction that would soon grip the entire state. In a rare show of unity, 98 mayors, spanning both Democratic and Republican parties, came together to sign a public letter addressed to Governor Tim Walz and the Minnesota legislature. The letter was more than just a list of complaints. It was a forceful statement outlining deep concerns about state-level fraud, unchecked government spending, and what they described as chronic fiscal mismanagement. The mayors argued that these issues were not just abstract problems, but ones that directly impacted their communities and the people they serve. This coalition, representing cities both large and small, rural and urban, decided to bypass the usual political channels. Instead, they made a direct, urgent appeal to the highest levels of state government, hoping to spark real change. Their message was clear: the status quo was no longer acceptable. The mayors explained that state policies were forcing them into impossible choices, raising property taxes on already burdened residents, or cutting back on essential services like public safety, libraries, and community programs. Meanwhile, they watched as the state government continued to spend freely, seemingly disconnected from the struggles faced by local communities. Their message was pointed: rising tax bills aren't simply the result of local decisions or mismanagement. Instead, they're a direct consequence of state mandates and spending priorities that leave cities with little choice but to pass costs onto homeowners and businesses. The mayors wanted the public to understand that the pain felt at the local level was often rooted in decisions made far from their own city halls. The letter was not a demand for a bailout or a handout. Rather, it was a heartfelt plea for predictability, transparency, and a true partnership between state and local governments. The mayors asked for a seat at the table, for their voices to be heard, and for a more stable system that would allow them to plan for the future without constant uncertainty. By taking their concerns public, these mayors ignited a statewide debate that quickly captured headlines and forced state leaders to respond. The letter became a rallying point for communities across Minnesota, sparking conversations in city halls, coffee shops, and living rooms about the future of local government and fiscal responsibility. As the new year approaches, Minnesota's financial health and the relationship between state and local governments are now front and center. The debate sparked by this letter is far from over, and its outcome could shape the state's future for years to come. The mayor's core argument centers on Minnesota's rapid fiscal reversal. Not long ago, the state had an $18 billion surplus, a chance to invest, cut taxes, or build reserves. Instead, that surplus vanished in just 2 years, replaced by a projected $3 billion deficit for 2028-29. Mayors see this as evidence of reckless spending and failed leadership. The whiplash has left local governments unable to plan for the future, fearing cuts to aid or new unfunded mandates. The surplus, they argue, was spent on expanding programs without sustainable funding. Now cities are left with higher costs and taxpayers on the hook. For the mayors, this isn't just a budget issue, it's a broken promise. Their communities are more vulnerable than ever. Fiscal decisions made in the halls of St. Paul don't just stay in the capital, they ripple outward, touching every corner of Minnesota. When lawmakers adjust budgets or shift funding priorities, the effects are felt far beyond the marble columns of the Capitol. These choices can hit local budgets hard, forcing city leaders and residents to make tough decisions about what their communities can afford. For most Minnesotans, the most immediate and visible impact is often a sharp increase in property taxes. Homeowners open their mail to find higher bills, and renters may see costs passed along to them as well. These tax hikes can come as a shock, especially for families already feeling squeezed by rising costs elsewhere. Mayors and city officials across the state are quick to point out that these increases aren't something they want to impose. Instead, they say their hands are tied by state mandates, reduced local government aid, and the need to balance budgets. Many city leaders feel they're left with no good options. In fact, cities are now proposing average levy increases of nearly 9%, a jump that would add up to a staggering $950 million in new property taxes statewide by 2026. For many, this is more than just a number, it's a real hit to the wallet. The result? Not just higher taxes, but also delayed repairs to roads and bridges, cuts to public safety, and reduced hours at parks and libraries. Services that residents rely on every day are being scaled back or put on hold. Cities are struggling to attract and retain workers, from police officers to maintenance crews. As infrastructure ages and repairs are delayed, roads crumble and public spaces deteriorate, making it even harder to draw in new businesses or keep existing ones. Mayors warn of a vicious cycle. As state policies drive up local costs, cities are forced to raise taxes and cut services. This makes communities less attractive, leading families and businesses to look elsewhere, and shrinking the local tax base even further. Residents are left paying more but getting less in return. As main streets empty out and neighbors move away, the sense of community can start to erode, and the burden on those who remain only grows heavier. The financial strain is real, and it's growing. City finance officials are working overtime to find solutions, but the gap between what's needed and what's available keeps widening. Local leaders say the state's choices are making it harder for cities to thrive. Without changes, the challenges facing Minnesota's communities will only deepen, affecting everyone who calls these places home. The mayor's letter points to troubling economic data. Minnesota's GDP growth since 2019 averages just 1%, well below the national average. The state ranks 33rd in economic growth, 40th in labor force growth, and 39th in job creation. Nearly 48,000 residents have left for other states since 2020, citing better opportunities and lower taxes elsewhere. Median household income growth is among the worst in the nation, and Minnesota's tax climate ranks 44th. The mayors argue these aren't just numbers, they're warning signs. They blame state fiscal policies for making Minnesota less competitive and more expensive. The economic slide, they say, is accelerating. The mayors blame unfunded mandates for the fiscal squeeze. State lawmakers pass new requirements, like paid family leave, without providing funding, leaving cities to foot the bill. Mayors say this practice forces them to raise property taxes for programs they didn't create. They accuse state leaders of scoring political points while shifting costs to local governments. The result, local officials feel powerless, forced to explain tax hikes for state-driven policies. Until the state stops imposing costly mandates without funding, mayors warn local taxes will keep rising. The mayor's letter triggered swift political responses. Governor Walz's office defends its record, citing historic investments in local aid, infrastructure, and public safety. They argue the state has been a generous partner, and that local governments must manage their own budgets responsibly. Meanwhile, Republican leaders echo the mayor's concerns, blaming the DFL for unchecked spending and permanent new programs. They call for spending cuts and the repeal of burdensome mandates. Both sides are gearing up for a major political battle over Minnesota's fiscal future. The mayor's message is now a rallying cry for change. The 98 mayors aren't just complaining, they're demanding action. Their letter calls for a shift to responsible, predictable state fiscal management and an end to unfunded mandates. They warn that without change, Minnesota risks losing more residents and businesses, deepening the state's economic woes. The fight will play out in public opinion and at the Capitol. As property tax bills arrive, the mayors hope to rally Minnesotans to their cause. The upcoming legislative session will be a showdown over spending, taxes, and the state's future. The bipartisan coalition of mayors could force compromise or deepen the divide. The outcome will shape Minnesota's path for years to come.